Thank you, Lillian. As Lillian was talking there, it brought me back to when my own brother was diagnosed with motor neuron disease in 2010. We had 2 nurses for the whole country, so fantastic to see that there's 6 nurses there, and it's just one example of the growth of the organisation in the last number of years. It's fantastic. I just want to introduce our next talker. It's Clare Duffy, and Clare is from Family Carers Ireland. So Clare has been the Policy and Public Affairs Manager with Family Care Ireland for the last 15 years, and is responsible for leading the organisation's policy and public affairs functions. She is passionate about securing positive change for family carers and works closely with government to help shape and advance carer policy. She leads the government's all-party Oireachtas interest group on family carers and has lobbied for many years for more inclusive social protection measures for carers, particularly in relation to means-tested income support. Clare has a particular interest in welfare, health and pension policy. Can you welcome, please, Clare Duffy.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Do you know, my real bio is actually Clare is a mammy to Sadie, who is 8. She's married to Trevor and she has a dog called Ted. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here this morning. I spoke at this event back in 2019, and so much water has passed under the bridge since then. So it's just so lovely to be back in a room full of people. I'm just delighted to be here. And also part of my bio, I'm from Tyrone as well. I'm really proud of it. So yes, I work for a national charity called Family Carers Ireland. I'm actually more nervous about controlling this thing than I am about talking. But I work for a national charity called Family Carers Ireland, and we used to be called the Carers Association, and we rebranded back in 2016, and more people knew us as the Carers Association than they know us Family Carers Ireland. So that's a lesson in rebranding. But we exist for one reason and one reason only, and that is to improve the lives of family carers. Whatever you need us to do, we will do. But we don't just look after carers of people with motor neuron disease. We look after parents of children with autism. People caring for someone with Down syndrome, someone caring for someone with dementia, someone with an acquired brain injury. It actually doesn't matter what the condition of the cared for person is. We exist to support the family carer, okay? And I'm really delighted to be here as well today, because today is the European Day in recognition of family carers. So if you're out and about tonight, hopefully you're all staying here, but if you were out and about tonight, you'd see that a lot of the Office of Public Works buildings are lit up in gold. Irish Rail, all their train stations, the Rocket Cashel is lit up in gold in celebration of the importance and the societal value, the immense contribution that family carers make. So it's lovely to be here on this day. So who cares? Very briefly. I should also have said what I'm going to talk about, and I think I have about 20 minutes. I'm taking a very practical approach today in terms of when you get a diagnosis of motor neuron disease, or indeed any condition, it throws your life upside down. And there's all that emotion that goes with it, but there's also the practical side as well. And I'm here today to look at the practical side. I'm here to talk to you about some of the financial supports that may be available for you and your family. Okay, so it's a very practical presentation this morning. So in Ireland, we have 500,000 family carers. That's about 1 in 8 people currently provide care. It's a very hidden army of people, because all that care is very often provided behind closed doors. Those 500,000 people would fill Croke Park about 6.5 times. So that's how many there are. These carers provide 19 million hours of unpaid care every week. And if every carer in the country decided, I can't do it anymore, and government had to replace you, it would cost government 20 billion every year. And these are figures from the CSO. So it's like a second HSE. You guys caring are a second HSE. And it's really important, as I talk and in the work that I do, that we remember that over half of carers are juggling their caring responsibilities with paid employment. Okay, they're going home at the weekend to care, they're going home in the evenings, and there's certain and very specific protections that we need to afford to them. Okay, so that's the figures. Now we're going to get stuck into the good stuff. Okay, so for many of you here today, as I say, when you get that diagnosis of motor neuron disease, it changes your family. You mightn't be able to continue working, or your loved one might have to give up their job and so on. So the first payment that I want to look at, and it's the main payment for family carers, it's called the carers allowance. Okay, and there's a little secret when we talk about social welfare. Any social welfare payment that ends in the word allowance means what? It means that it's means tested. You only get it if your income is below a certain level. There's one exception to that, which is domiciliary care allowance, but I won't go there, okay? So you only get carers allowance if your income is below a certain level, okay? So it's means tested. Really important to remember that. It's a maximum of €236 per week. So even though we know that 95,000 people in Ireland get carers allowance, actually a lot of them don't get the maximum rate. So the more your income goes over that top limit, the less of the carers allowance you get. And then if you're over if you're over 66, you get more, you get €274. And there's a legacy reason for that I won't get into either. And the really important thing to remember is that when you get carers allowance, it's paid for the duration of your caring role. So there's no end date. As long as you're caring full time and satisfying all the requirements of carers allowance, you're going to continue to get it. So in order for the carer, you have to be over 18. You don't have to live with the person you care for, but you should live fairly nearby, okay? And then for the person receiving care, they are medically assessed. They have to satisfy the department that they need full-time care. But remember, the department never meet the person you're caring for. They don't go looking at them and prodding them. It's all based on a medical report that your GP provides to the GP or the doctor that's employed by the department. And a lot of people don't realise that. There are medical doctors working in the department who assess your applications for all these medical related payments, okay? But it is means tested, and that's the biggie. For any of you sitting in front of me today that's thinking, is the carers allowance for me? Remember, it's means tested. I'm going to talk briefly about the means test in a little while. And remember this golden rule about carers allowance. You don't get carers allowance because you care for someone. You get it because you care full time. And that's a big secret. You don't get it because you care, you get it because you care full time. And I'll talk to you as well about what those hours are. When you get carers allowance, there's 5 perks that come with it automatically. And sometimes these perks are worth more than the carers allowance itself. So even if you're awarded a greatly reduced carers allowance, sometimes the things that come with it are actually more beneficial. So the first thing you get when you get carers allowance is the annual carers support grant, €1,850, paid like magic on the first Thursday in June. The second thing that arrives in your postbox is the free travel pass. So sometimes if you live in Dublin, it's great, but if you live where I live, there's no buses, so it's not as valuable. But anyway, you get it. You get a thing called the household benefits package, which is credits towards your ESB or gas bill and an exemption to the TV licence. You also get a carer GP visit card, which is really important as well. So the carer doesn't have to pay when they go to their GP. And then there's this energy upgrade, which is a brilliant grant from SSEI. Not going to go into it, but it's really important. If you get carers allowance, you're eligible for that grant. And it's a 100% grant towards insulation and energy upgrades in your home, okay? So this is important. I mean, I want to know how much time I should spend on this. Is this something that people in front of me are interested in? Because I can move on to more juicy stuff if you want me to. Are people in front of me here thinking about carers allowance and thinking, is it for me? Yeah? Yeah, okay. I'm going to tell you, when you apply for carers allowance and you fill out your form and you actually apply to Longford, okay, there's 6 things they look at to determine whether you're getting carers allowance or not. The first thing is, does the person you care for need full-time care? And remember what I said, it's what their GP fills out the back of the carers allowance form, and it's a doctor in the department that interpret that. You have to provide full-time care. Okay, and the secret there is, because they don't advertise this, it's at least 35 hours of care each week. And when you fill out your carers allowance form, there's a question that says, how many hours of care do you provide a day? And then how many days per week? So if you say I provide 4 hours of care a day, 5 days a week, that's 20, that's less, you're not getting carers allowance, okay? So it's really important that it's full-time care. You cannot work or study outside the home for a minute more than 18 and a half hours. That's a really strict rule that they imply. As I said earlier, you don't have to live with the person you care for. You have to be fairly close by if something happens. So you have to be able to get to them in about 20 minutes. I'm not even going to go into the habitual residence condition. It basically means your centre of interest has to be Ireland, okay, which for most people it will be. And this is the biggie that catches a lot of people, the means test. And I mean, I have it on record saying, if we can ever get rid of the means test for carers allowance, I'm going to retire and sail off into the sunset, because it is the bane of my life. I do not believe carers allowance should be means tested, but it is. It has the most generous means test in the social welfare system, but it's not nearly generous enough, okay? So if you pass all 6 of them, you're getting the carers allowance. It's a bit like your leaving cert. If you feel, is it English or maths in your leaving cert, you're not. All you have to do is fail one of them and you're gone. So if any of you in front of me are at the stage where maybe you've been refused carers allowance and you're looking to review it or looking for an appeal, look at the letter that they sent you from the department. It tells you why they've refused you. They'll point to one of these 6 things or maybe 2 or more, okay? They'll tell you, and that's what you focus your appeal on, okay? The means test. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but the means test, if you're lucky enough to be single, the means test is 300, or the disregard, which means the first €350 of your weekly income is ignored. That's what a disregard means. It's a fancy word for ignored. So if you're single, the first 350 of your weekly income is disregarded. And we fought long and hard to get this. But now they've increased the capital disregard. That means how much savings and things you can have. That increased 2 years ago from 20 grand to 50 grand. So you're allowed to have 50 grand in savings as a single person, €350 per week, and happy days, you're going to pass the means test, okay? If you're married, the income disregard is €750 per week. That's ignored. And again, it's the 50 grand capital disregard. There's a different formula that they apply and just working that out, okay? And then people say to me, well, is that my gross income or my net income? And I say it's kind of neither. They look at your payslip. Say you apply for the carers allowance and your husband works and you're the carer. They look at your husband's payslip or your partner's payslip. And they look at the net income. Sorry, apologies. They look at the gross income, but they deduct 4 things. They deduct anything you paid towards a pension. They deduct any subscription you have for a trade union. They deduct your employee PRSI, and they give you €15 travel every week to and from work. Now, travel, €15 wouldn't get me back to Mullingar today, to be honest, so it's not enough. But that's what they allow you to deduct from your means test. So then what's included? Any income you have from employment, if you have maintenance payments, if you have a private pension, all of that stuff, what cash you have is included in the means test, as well as what capital you have. And capital's a fancy word for what have you got in the bank? What shares have you got? Do you have a holiday home in Enniscrone? It's all those, not your primary home, but your second properties, okay? They look at that in capital, but they disregard, they ignore any income coming into your household from social welfare, okay? So you don't include it, okay? And I'm going to fly over this. I go into this in detail if if I have more time. I'm not going to, but there's a way, and I'm happy to talk to people today if they are going through the means test, how you calculate it based on a payslip. I'm going to just fly through that and show you that even a payslip that looks quite generous, that payslip actually, the partner in that case was earning €1,200 per week gross. His wife, and that's a real payslip, his wife qualified for €136 per week of a carer's allowance. So I put it up there to show you, don't be afraid of applying. Don't just assume, I'm not going to get it. Apply. It doesn't cost you anything. And that's the capital disregard. That's basically how they determine or how they assess the value they put on the savings that you have in your bank or any second properties, okay? I won't go into that either because I have too much to cover. The really important thing I want to talk about today as well is, and a lot of people don't realise this, has anybody here ever heard of the half-rate carers allowance? No? So people say to me very often, why am I being punished? They put me on the half rate. Why aren't I not in the full rate? I'm not in the full rate care. Does that mean I'm not doing the full amount of care? It isn't. We have this weird scheme for carers called the half rate carers allowance, but it's actually the Rolls Royce of payments for carers. And the late Seamus Brennan, God rest him, when he was Minister for Social Welfare, he recognised the immense contribution that was made by family carers. And he changed the rules, because the rules in social welfare are that any person is only entitled to one social welfare payment. You're only entitled to one. So if you're unemployed, it's job seekers. If you've got a disability allowance. If you're a carer, it's care. He changed the rules and he says, how long? I can see that we have people in receipt of certain social welfare payments, but they're also providing full-time care, and I'm going to recognise that. So he changed the rules, and with the half-rate carers allowance, he allows certain people to keep their main social welfare payment and get a half rate on top of it. So you'll always be better off in the half rate. So don't give out about being in the half rate. It's the best payment for you. And I'm just going to show you really quickly how it works. So say, for example, this family come into my office And they say to me, Clare, look, here's our situation. My husband's on the disability allowance. He's motor neuron disease, for example. He's on the disability allowance, getting €220 per week. And I'm on the carers allowance of 236. I'm getting the full amount, and I'm getting all them perks you talked about, the 4 perks. I'm happy out, aren't I? And I would say, no, you're on the wrong payment. And they would tell me to go away because what? But they are on the wrong payment because they would be financially better off if the person, the carer, switched to a half-rate carers allowance, went on to an increased it's called an IQA, an increase for a qualified audit, on their partner's disability allowance. They still get their perks, but their income goes up. I'm afraid to go back a slide because I don't know which button to press. So I'm going forward. I'm not looking back. But their income goes up by about €30, I think, a week by switching their carers allowance payment, okay? So it's really good to be informed. And as I say, you're not expected to know these things. You've enough on your plate. We're expected to know these things, and that's why we're here to support you as well around intricate things like that. Now, actually, what's probably, you start shaking your fist at me when I've reached my time, or I have 5 minutes to go. I won't take offence. Probably where a lot more of you are today is where, and I'm talking to the carers in the room, you're probably in the situation where you're still working and you're thinking, how can I keep going and work? This, what am I going to do? I need to give up work. Do I have to give up? What's the story? So I really want you to pay attention to this next few slides, because we have a beautiful piece of legislation in Ireland called the Carers Leave Act 2001. Imagine, that makes it about 20-something years old, right? It's a beautiful piece of legislation. I got to speak at Carers New South Wales Annual Conference virtually. They didn't take me to New South Wales, but they wanted to know all about our carers leave legislation because it's so lovely, right? So I want to tell you a bit about it. In the same way that if you had someone who's pregnant and they go on maternity leave for 26 weeks, and that lady gets paid maternity benefit of 262, that's what our carers leave and carers benefit is like. It's like that, except you can be a man on carers leave and carers benefit, okay? So our carers leave is more generous. So if you're caring for someone and you're in work and you go to your employer and say, I need to take time away from my work because my caring responsibilities are so much that I just can't balance the two. You can apply for carers leave of 104 weeks, that's 2 years, for each person you're caring for. And while you're 5 minutes, oh God, and I have a whole lot to go through, I will finish up. But while you're on carers leave, you get paid carers benefit of €237 per week. It's a beautiful piece of legislation, completely underutilised, okay? So it's not means tested. It's based on your PRSI record. So if you've been in work for the last number of years, you're going to have enough PRSI contributions to qualify for carers leave and carers benefit, okay? Again, you just need to be of working age. You don't have to live with the person you care for. You have to live fairly nearby. And again, the person you're caring for has to be deemed to need full-time care. And it's all held up by your right to leave work and have your employment protected while you're on that carers leave. Okay, lovely, lovely piece of legislation. It's €237 per week. I'm going to make available my slides, so if anybody wants the detail about what contributions and so on you need to have, that's it, okay? But you can work while you're on carers leave, actually. So even if I go to my employer in the morning and I say, look, I have to leave work, I need to care for my mother or whatever that might be, I can still work for 18 and a half hours a week and get the 237 in carers benefit on top of it. But I cannot earn a penny more than €350 during those 18 and a half hours. Okay? And I'm flying through it because I've talked too long. The other thing I want to say before I finish up is another lovely thing that has happened for carers in the last 6 months is the enactment of this new act called the Work-Life Balance and Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 2023. And it provides for 2 lovely pieces of rights for carers. It allows carers to request flexible working from your employer because of your caring responsibilities. So I can go to my employer and say, look, I cannot work before 10 o'clock in the morning because I care for my mum, I have to get her up, whatever. And your employer, you've no right to them saying yes, but if they say no, they have to put it in writing and it has to be such a solid answer and it has to stand up to the scrutiny of the WRC. Okay. The other lovely thing that's in this Act is that you have an entitlement now to 5 days unpaid. We don't like the unpaid part, but 5 days unpaid leave from your employer for medical care purposes. So if you're caring for someone with motor neuron disease, for example, and you need to bring them to a medical appointment, you don't have to take a day's annual leave to bring them. You're now allowed a medical leave day, which is unpaid. And can I just say, a lot of the big employers, Irish Life, Bank of Ireland, who are members of ours, have decided, no, we're not going to give 5 days unpaid, we're going to give 10 and we're going to pay them. So there's a trend starting that actually we're recognising carers. I am sure my 5 minutes are up. You must be delighted. Sorry, one more thing I want to say. This is the Tyrone woman and me coming out. It's no problem getting me to talk, it's getting me to stop. There's another lovely grant. I'm not even going to show you the slides, but I just wanted to tell you about it. For any of you who don't satisfy the means test for the carers allowance, but you are providing full-time care for someone in need of full-time care and you're not working for more than 18 and a half hours a week, there's a grant called the Carers Support Grant. It's paid on the first Thursday in June. It's €1,850 tax-free for you as the carer. And you get one full grant for every person you care for. And if you've missed the first Thursday in June, which you have this year, you can apply for that to be backdated. Okay, really important. It is not means tested. And there's a wee rumour that on Tuesday it is going to be increased, but I don't know that for sure. So look, I'm going to leave it there. I had so much more that I'd love to tell you, but thank you. I'm so delighted to be back in a room full of real people. It's brilliant. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Many thanks, Claire. Very, very informative session there. And I suppose a word that popped out for me was entitlement. Right. So I know when my own brother had this and we were looking as a family, we always said, oh, well, we're entitled to it, but other people need it more than we do. You know, and often we make that mistake. So, you know, it's definitely worth considering, and that, you know, we are entitled to it.